Good morning, everyone. My name is Whitney Smotherman. I'm the college counselor at Mount St. Mary Academy, but I am also co-chair along with Matt Foster on the SACAC Arkansas Drive-In Workshop. So today we have a couple of great sessions lined up for you all. But before we get started, we first want to just give some more information about what is SACAC. So we have our state area initiatives, Darren Morgan, who's going to share some more information about what SACAC is, and then we'll dive into our sessions.
All right. Hey, everybody. I don't know why my name is listed as Whitney on the screen, but my name is actually Darren Morgan. I'm the Executive Director of Arkansas Commitment, as well as the State and Area Initiatives Chair for SACAC. Give me 1 second to pull up my PowerPoint and we will get started. But in the meantime, just a quick introduction to SACAC. We're actually a regional affiliate of NACAC, the National Association for College Admissions Counselors. In addition to Arkansas, members of SACAC include the 8 southern states, as well as the Caribbeans. This is a great professional networking event, activity or organization. Some of our priorities are to provide our members with professional development workshops, networking events, access to resources, whether you're on the college side or the high school side. It is a great organization to participate in just for the network alone. Memberships right now go for $45 and it range between September 1st and August 31st. Give me 1 second to pull up the PowerPoint. It's not allowing me to share. All right, here we go. All right, so there's the quick introduction to it. A couple of ways that we can get involved are right here. So we have a long list of ways for members or potential members to get involved with SACAC. Some of our most popular ones are going to be the Sweet Tea College Tour. It's a great way to learn more about colleges in the region. It's a 5-day road trip to colleges right in our backyard that many of our students commonly apply to, and some that may not be on their radar yet, but should be. This year's event takes place June 5th through the 9th and will include colleges and universities throughout Tennessee. It's a great and really long list of colleges, so if you're interested, definitely check it out. Registration includes most meals and all lodging during the tour. Participants will stay in suite-style single rooms on college campuses at a cost of only $600 and $650 for non-members. This is a great way to gain more familiarity with schools right here in our backyard. The second way is our annual conference. This is our organization's flagship professional development event. It's a 3-day conference that's going to take place April 23rd through April 25th in Jacksonville, Florida. It's filled with college fairs, wellness and athletic programming, networking events, and tons of information sessions covering topics ranging from financial aid to best practices in admissions to ethics in the field. If you are able to attend, I highly recommend going. I'll be there this year, so I hope to see you there. But it is always a great time, and you come back just with a ton of information and just more contacts. And the last one is not listed on the screen, but it's the Summer Seminar 2023 program. This year's event is going to take place July 17th through the 20th at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, in Charlotte, North Carolina. This program connects high school, college, and guidance counselors with undergraduate admissions counselors in a 3-day workshop. During this event, members are going to receive professional development on topics ranging from ethics and college counseling, recommendation letter writing, relationship and network building, special talents and athletics and admissions, as well as financial aid. It's also going to give participants the time to reflect, share ideas, and ignite or reignite that love for the field. The target audience for this one is going to be new counselors with 3 years or less of experience, or seasoned vets that kind of just want to brush up on some old skills. They're now accepting applications for faculty members up until March 20th. So if you're interested in participating as a faculty member, definitely go ahead and get your application in. The program fees for this one's going to be $475 for members and $550 for non-members. And on a more local level, SACAC also helps its members through programs like the Legislative Day is coming up this Thursday, March 2nd. I'm not sure if Wendell or Jeremy are on, but if they are, I'm going to give them a chance to kind of hop on and talk about it a little bit. Are you guys on? All right, if not, so I do know that they're bringing in some great local officials to speak to us about updates concerning issues that will impact our students. This session's panel list will include Jamie Scott, representative for the District 37 for Pulaski County. She's also the director of Pulaski County Youth Services, and Mr. Reggie Ballard, the chief of staff for the Little Rock School District. So two great individuals. I know them both personally, and they've been preparing for this for a while. So come on to learn a lot of new changes that will impact our students going forward. And lastly, we also have events like the Mini Camp College. These are going to be sessions that educate students and their family on things like the college search process, financial aid, resources, and how to make your students more competitive in this process. Any member of SACAC can host an event, whether you're on the CBO side, the high school side, or independent side. And don't worry about funding, because if you are interested in hosting an event, SACAC will actually give $1,000 stipend to pay for promotion, space, and other items for the event. So if you are interested, hop online to our website, and I'll drop that link in the chat and fill out a grant request for that. If your school doesn't have the budget, but you would like to attend an event like our annual conference, we also have the Council Participation Fund. You see it on the screen. It actually provides fundings for CBO and public school counselors to attend SACAC events by providing financial support. And the last one is the Extend the Dream grant. If you have a really great idea for a project that you're not sure where you're going to get the money from, but you know it will help a lot of students, that's what the Extend the Dream grant is for. Sorry, I'm congested. My allergies are killing me today. Sorry. So if you're interested in that, go online and hop on the SACAC Extend the Dream grant and apply for funding today. If anyone else has any upcoming SACAC events or events that they would like the group to know, feel free to throw it in the chat or unmute. But if not, we're going to have one last shameless plug about our annual conference. Is coming up again, April 23rd through 25th. The early bird special for $250 for members in today. So if you are interested in attending, go ahead and save a little money by registering for that conference today. If not, the price is going to go up by $50 starting tomorrow. So save a little money, go ahead and register. This is always a great event, so you don't want to miss out on it. All right, if you are interested in getting more involved in SACAC or state and area initiatives, you can reach out to Corey Bailey, that is the regional SAI chair, by emailing him at stateinitiatives@sacac.org, or you can reach out to me directly. And again, I'm also going to put the link for SACAC if you would like to join as a member in the chat. All right, if not, I believe I'm going to turn it over to Whitney or Ms. Jobe.
All right, thank you, Darren. And personally, I've been able to participate or benefit from that Council Participation Fund a few years ago and attend the summer seminar. So both are really great programs that SACAC offers I can personally vouch for. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our schedule for today. So first up, we have Sandra Carmona Jobe, and she's going to be chatting about fostering relationships with Latinx and Hispanic students. So I'm not going to be able to do her justice, but a quick bio to give you a little bit of background of Sandra. Her passion and professional career is serving underrepresented at-risk students through their journey towards post-secondary education. She's received dual bachelor degrees in mass communication and Spanish, as well as a master's degree in higher education at UA Little Rock. Sandra is currently the director of college and career counseling and advising at Arkansas Lighthouse Charter Schools, where she assists students through data-driven intervention programs and action plans. Sandra commits a significant amount of time serving the Central Arkansas Hispanic population. She's a longtime member of the League of United Latin American Citizens, where she has served in many different roles. She is currently the vice president and a board member of Mamas United Little Rock. So with that, Sandra, I'll turn it over to you. We'll go.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. months ago, I reached out to Whitney and said, hey, I have information that I want to share. I don't want to keep it for myself. So she was like, yes, we'll have you on. So finally, that time has come, and I'm excited to be able to share this with you. I'm going to share my screen. And I'll need you guys' help to make sure that that it's showing. Can everyone see my screen? And
Yes.
okay. All right, so let me do this. All right, so today I will be talking about fostering Latino Hispanic students. And just a disclaimer, the information we have here, it's based on research. It's not my own words. It's research that we have found, but we know that that's accurate based on our experience. And when I said our experience, it's through the nonprofit work that I've done with which I'll talk a little bit more about with the Mamas Unidas organization. But we have seen it through that organization and how it all comes together. So this concepts and theory behind it, we've seen it in action. So that's what we're sharing today. And also through my work here at Jacksonville Lighthouse. So to start out, there's always a confusion between Hispanic, Latino. So I wanted to share a quick video to show the difference between the two. It's only 2 minutes. So, and if you can't hear it or if it's laggy, let me know in the chat and I'll share the link for you to watch.
Latino and Hispanic, Hispanic and Latino. The two words are often used interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. The difference lies in the words themselves. Latino refers to geography. People who are from or descendants of Latin America. That's this area here on the globe. It includes most countries in Central and South America, as well as some in the Caribbean. 20 countries total, and some territories like Puerto Rico. The term Latin America was first used by Chilean politician Francisco Bilbao in 1856. It was used to describe countries in America whose predominant languages stem from Latin, so like Spanish, Portuguese, French. That's why Belize in Central America and Guyana and Suriname in South America are not part of Latin America. English is the official language of Belize and Guyana. Dutch and Suriname-Tongo are spoken in Suriname. We've recently adopted Latinx as a gender-neutral alternative to Latino and Latina. In the most literal sense, Hispanic also refers to language. People who are from or descendants of Spanish-speaking countries. That includes places like Spain in Europe and some countries and territories in the Caribbean. It excludes countries like Brazil and others in Latin America where the predominant language isn't Spanish. According to the Cervantes Institute, more than 400 million people worldwide are from Spanish-speaking countries, and nearly 10% of those reside in the United States. That's a lot. And that's probably why the US government introduced the term in the 1970 census during Richard Nixon's presidency. So back to the beginning. The two terms shouldn't be used interchangeably because they're not the same thing. You can be Hispanic if you're from Spain, but that doesn't make you Latinx because you're not from a Latin American country. You're Latinx if you're from Brazil, but you're not Hispanic. But you can be both. I'm both. My family is from Mexico, both a Latin and Hispanic country. Now you know.
All right, so just a quick recap. Latino, like she said, it's a geographic location. So it depends on where it is, which is Latin America. And then Hispanic is more tied into the language specifically. For most of the presentation, I will use Latino because a lot of the culture and these concepts are tied to the geographical location of the that becomes the culture. And then Latinx, that's a controversial word. I don't know, especially here in Arkansas. I don't know if you guys heard from when the new governor came in. She said that she was banning all of the Latinx. And then even with the Latino community, there's been that dilemma whether they want to use it or not. So just for the purpose of this, I will stick with Latino because that's what we've known throughout the years, and to avoid all that controversy of the Latinx. All right, and then like she mentioned, there's some countries or some individuals from certain countries that can be both Latino and Hispanic. So this breaks it down, just a quick picture of who's what. And Latino, as you can see, includes Brazilians, but they're not Hispanic because they speak Portuguese, they don't speak Spanish. And then you can see which ones overlap in our Hispanic Latino. I'm also from Mexico, so I'll be considered Latina and then Hispanic. So that's a good visual representation of what's what. All right, so once we have that established, it's important to talk about why it's important to recognize Latino Hispanic students' diversity, because what we see a lot of times is that, oh, you see an individual that looks probably like me, and you're like, oh, they're Latino Hispanic, they probably do this, and that. But the truth is that my background, my cultural background, my political diversity, the linguistics and the immigration backgrounds might be very different from someone from Guatemala or Salvador or Cuba. So when you put everyone as, oh, they're just Hispanic Latino, you can create this biases or these ideas about individuals, and you want to treat them a certain way, where in reality, it's totally different. So that's why it's important to realize this. And then also I wanted to touch on why cultural diversity matters. There's always a confusion between race and culture. And this right here, a great example of it is, and this is recent that I learned about the Afro-Mexicans in Mexico. So back when they had the slavery, a lot of individuals that were escaping the slavery ended up in Mexico, and they have a huge population of Afro-Mexicans. So when you see them, you might think, oh, they're Black, and you're assuming that all their culture and traditions and all that. But in reality, yes, their race is Black, but their culture is Mexican because they were born in Mexico and they grew up with those traditions. So it's important to realize that culture differences. And then, let me see. So how can we support cultural diversity? Because I know it's like, well, it's so many cultures, it's so much to learn from. So you don't necessarily have to be an expert about someone's culture. The biggest idea is for you to realize that there's a diversity, and that you don't have to assume certain things, and that you want to interact with those cultures. You want to increase your level of understanding about those cultures by interacting with them. And then, like I said, you don't have to create those meaningful relationships. It's okay if you just, learn the basic information about them. You also want to avoid imposing your own values on them. Just because something is true to you doesn't mean that it's true to them. So don't go and like, oh, well, this is done this way, or this is the way it is, because no, it's everyone's values are different, especially when it gets from culture to culture. English limitations do not reflect in the intellectual level. And what that means is that there may be a person that you're speaking to and their English is very limited, and you start assuming like, oh, this person probably has elementary education, probably didn't go to school. But in reality, it could be that this person was a doctor in their home country, or a lawyer, which we see that a lot right now with immigration. And just because they don't speak the language doesn't mean oh, they don't know, or they don't have an education. And that we see that happen a lot. Then cultural values and concepts, recognize and understand that those concepts such as family, gender roles, spiritually, emotional well-being, they vary significantly among cultures, and that also influence behavior. And we'll go a little bit more into detail with those type of concepts. And then also within the workplace or in education, use of that are represented on. It says internet connection. So advocate for materials that are representative or of various cultural groups within the local community and the society in general. Because when they start seeing those type of materials, or they feel more included. And then intervene when appropriate. So if you see something that others are engaging in behaviors that are insensitive to the culture or are prejudice or bias, make sure you say something and not just brush it off, because that starts to make a difference. And then last is to be proactive in listening, accepting and welcoming people and ideas that are different from your own. And I know sometimes it can be scary, but I promise you it'll be worth it at the end, and it'll make your job a lot easier too. So let's go into some cultural values. These 4 values are the ones that, like I said, me with being part of the Mamás Unidas organization, which I'll talk a little bit more about. These are 4 cultural values that we have seen and used, and we take it, we keep in mind every time we do something with the community, that have worked very well with what we do, and it has made the organization pretty successful in such a short amount of time. So they're respeto, familismo, educación, and marialismo. So the first one, with respeto, is a value that parents emphasize in Latino culture and communicates respect. That's what respeto means in English, is respect. Is to have that for one another, for elders, for adults, family relationships, and community. So those who are in a position of authority according to age, gender, social position, title, economic status, they hold an influence on Hispanic Latino students because of that status that they hold. So that also means that students are more accepting of decisions that an authority of power has on them. So that's why it's really important that when you're talking to them, we're giving them advice, that you really think about what you're telling them, because they'll see you with that respeto, and they'll really take it into consideration when making their decisions that can be life-changing. The next one, familismo, it means home life, and you probably have seen this if you've worked with Latino families. It involves dedication, commitment, and loyalty to family. And it involves seeking the family advice for important decisions. And then that means they spend time with them. They very close to each other. It also means sometimes like letting them borrow money and resources and taking care of them. So it's a very tight family community. The other one is educación, which means education. This concept fixes parents as the main source of education for their children, and on how to navigate different adult relationships and social systems in relations to the position of the parents in those networks. Parents in this, as far as this concept, parents believe that it's their responsibility to educate their children for life, not just for school. A great example of this for my dad, him educating my brother. I have a 13-year-old brother. Him educating my brother means taking him back out to the backyard and teaching him how to cut the yard or how to build something. And so they're teaching them how to be prepared for life and teaching them the skills our parents think will be necessary for life. So it's not necessarily always like, oh, you know, homework and being involved in school. So it's a different thought behind what education means. So going back to that, educating them for life. And then, so this, educating them for life, it creates a different meaning of education involvement for the parents. So like I said, for them, education, being involved in education means making sure that they did their homework, instilling strong cultural values that support the educational system, and then conversing with them and making sure that their children are well rested for school and making sure that they attend school. So this, a lot of times, is often overlooked by school administration. And they think that because this doesn't fall necessarily under the traditional definitions of engagement, because a lot of times the American system, they think that involved parents means they're here for teacher-parent conferences and they're in the PTA club or they're here volunteering and so on. But that it's not the parents' definition of involvement. So the school admin or teachers might think like, oh, their parents are not very involved with them and their education, but that's not true. It's just a different definition of what they think that is. The last one is materialismo, which emphasizes on self-sacrifice of females and highlights their traditional roles as the caregiver at home. So a lot of times, materialismo together with familismo, it creates a challenge for Latina girls because they feel the pressure of having to fulfill family obligations, and it keeps them devoted to the house instead of putting a priority in succeeding in school. And this a lot of times can look in ways of where they can't join extracurricular activities, or they can't go out on field trips or summer camps because they are tied to having to help at the house. And I don't know if you guys have seen any of this. If you want to write anything on the chat about any of this 4 cultural values that you have seen while you've worked with the Hispanic population. Like I said, through Mamas Unidas, we see it a lot all the time and how all these play a role. So that leads me into what we do at Mamas Unidas and how those cultural concepts come into play. So Mamas Unidas started in 2017 as a group of moms that were getting together to provide information to each other about how they can help their kids go to college. These moms had kids that were seniors, and they were like, okay, we want them to go to college. We want the best for them, but we don't know anything about the American system, the college education, about what scholarships are, what the college application process is, or anything like that. So they started to gather periodically to share information and research that they found, and they were building that community of helping each other foster their children. And they were making sure that they worked as a community to help them succeed. So now I wanted to pull it up. Nope, that's the wrong one. This is our website. I wanted to show you guys. It's under here. The mission of Mamás Unidas has become to inform parents of existing resources and of the steps their children have to follow as a means of supporting them in achieving their educational dreams and thus having a better future. So we understand the importance of familismo, and we know that it's a family unit. So that's why a lot of times and then also the respeto. So that's why we're working with the parents to get to the students, because the students will respect their parents, going back to the respeto cultural value. And then the parents, they will work with their children to ensure that they get the resources that they need, again, because they have that family unity and they all support each other. And then going back to the respeto with Mamás Unidas, now they see us as a trusting organization and they see us at a position of authority. That's why we have been able to have a positive and a remarkable influence in the Hispanic community here in Central Arkansas. And right now, as a Mamás Unidas organization, we are focusing on 4 things, which are community workshops. We provide information to the parents in Spanish about what the GPA is, what the ACT is, what the application process is, volunteer work, and all that. The second one is one-on-ones. We sit with the families and talk to them about, like, this is where your scholar is, and this is where he has to be. And then we create a plan based on their specific needs. The third one is student workshops. So for example, like essay writing workshops or ACT prep workshops, we provide those. And then the last one that I'm really excited about is a cohort program that we took the Arkansas commitment, we sat down with Darren and see what they were doing, and we wanted to model something like that, a smaller scale, taking into consideration the needs of our population. And we're going to start that. Right now, the application is open. So if you guys know any 9th graders that will be a good fit for this program, we'll be meeting once a month to provide information, workshops and trainings about how they can prepare for college and beyond. So throughout this, the Mamás Unidas work that we do, we take into consideration all these cultural values as well as other concepts that I'll talk about in a minute. And knowing those things have made it so much easier to work with their community, and it has really allowed us to make an impact. So based on what we're doing, we were getting people were asking us, like, how are you doing this? You're making a movement within the community, people are responding. How are you doing it? So Micah and I, which I think she's connected right now, she's the president of Mamás Unidas, and we sat down and put this presentation together about 3-4 years ago, and we really wanted to touch upon the concepts and the cultural values that we knew people could also use to make that connection and really make something happen within the community. So I'll go back. If you want later on more information about Mamás Unidas, definitely let us know. I'll be happy to share that information. Any questions so far? I don't see you guys on here, so it's hard to, let me see.
Yeah,
Sandra,
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So before you get off, if you'll definitely add the contact information in the chat for Mamás Unidas. But if we want to refer a student and their family, is there like a particular referral information contact versus just if we have a question for you, contact? So if you can just, if there's a different contact.
Yes, so I can share the information at the end. I don't think I have it on the slide, but I'll make sure I post it on the chat. One thing that I can tell you that it works best with their parents is we just tell them, follow us on Facebook. We're quick to respond. Well, Mike is quick to respond. It's Mamás Unidas LR. Make sure they have the LR, but it's Mamás Unidas LR. We're on Facebook. They can send us a chat on there and a message on there, and we'll make sure that we get with them as soon as we can. I'm trying to see, show video panel. Okay, there it goes. Now I feel like I'm looking at somebody. There it goes. Now everybody can see my screen. All right, so now I want to touch up on some of the barriers that we personally have seen in the community and that are true to nationwide. This is also based on some research that we've seen about some of those barriers. And students are navigating a system that is new to them, that taxes them on an experientiality, psychologically and emotionally. So these are some of those, and I'll briefly go over each one of them because they really create a gap between students that are here that are maybe white or black or someone. It creates that gap between these Latino Hispanic students. And the students, a lot of the students we work with, they also have the barriers that our Black community and our white community have, that are like low income, first generation, those barriers that they usually face, but it's those plus a few more. So it always puts them a little bit behind as far as achieving higher education. And that's what I'll be touching on for this section. So the first one is lacking guidance. It's three areas where they lack the guidance. The first one is with parents. A lot of times, since their parents are immigrants, they're unfamiliar with the college system in the United States. So it's hard for them to go to their parents and say, hey, can you help me apply for this scholarship? Or, hey, can you help me apply for this college? And so on. So that becomes a big barrier for them. The parents, a lot of times, did not even finish grade school. And if they did, they probably didn't go to high school. In some cases, the parents don't even know how to read or write. And we've seen that with families that we have met where, you know, they can't read and write. And a lot of times what we see is schools or counselors or so on, they provide information in Spanish, like, oh yeah, we're being inclusive, we're taking them into consideration, we're sending information in Spanish. But in reality, like I said, the parent might not even know how to read, or they can read, but they really don't understand what is being said in those materials. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, where it's like, okay, I'm sending this in Spanish, and how can I make sure that they understood what was being said? And then with counselors, we live in a world where, you know, all the counselors are overloaded because the schools are overcrowded and under-resourced. So these counselors, you know, they can only do so much to be able to provide services for the greater good. But a lot of times these students fall between the cracks because they just have so many more needs. And then as far as mentors, due to the low numbers of Hispanic college graduates, it's often difficult for them to find a mentor within their close family or community circle that can provide them guidance based on shared experiences. The next one is economic factors. We already know that regardless of race or ethnicity, poor children are much more likely than non-poor children to suffer developmental delay and damage, and more likely to drop out of high school, more likely to give birth during teen years. Well, the Hispanic Latino children are twice as likely to live in poverty than white children, and many of them live in deep poverty. And this is, to me, I think it's crazy because despite the high levels of employment within the Hispanic families, there's still a high level of children, or a high number of children who live in near poverty. So it doesn't matter if their parent is working all the time, there's still that disparity where their income is not high, because a lot of times they're working in factories, or they're working in a job that, because they're undocumented or don't speak the language, they're not getting paid very much. So they're working a lot, they're not present at home to support, but they're still very poor. The next one, language barriers. So with the students, a lot of times if they come, say they weren't born in the US, then they come here and they having to not only learn the language, but they're learning a new culture, then they're learning what's being taught at school. So they can have limited English language skills, which can prevent them from taking advantage of additional opportunities for them. And then when it comes to like taking tests and being involved in activities, it will limit them to be able to do so. And with the parents, they could be that they don't speak English either, and they often feel bad about not being able to understand. So if they go to like a parent-teacher conference or a meeting at the school, they will not understand what you're telling them, and they'll feel bad. And out of the respect, they might be like, "Oh yeah, I understand." And you're like, "Okay, yeah, he got what I was saying. He was nodding." But in reality, they didn't understand. And now they go home, they feel defeated, and they'll more likely not return. They'll feel rejected, or they'll feel like they can't really support their children. So that's why it's really important, when available, to maybe provide a translator or interpreter or anything like that. And I think I had a chat. Let me see.
Sandra, real quick, I just posted this in chat, so I'm sure you haven't seen it yet.
Let me see.
But for those, email communications that go out that are in Spanish, do you have any suggestions on how the schools or the counselors can do that extra step to make sure that they are understanding the message that's being sent?
Yes. So, and this, I know it's not ideal time-wise, because like I said, counselors a lot of times are overloaded and under-resourced. But what we have done, and Micah, like I said, the president of Mamás Unidas, I think she's connected. She's amazing at following up with a quick phone call, which I know language can be a barrier, but it's just calling or sending a text that you can translate. Right now we have our phones handy and they have Google Translate, and just say, "Hey, just so you know, we sent out this packet or this information. Do you have any questions, or do you understand?" And once you build that relationship with the parents, all you have to do is show that you care for their kids and you want the best for them. They'll have you at that level of respect, and they'll be more likely to respond like, "Yes, I understood," or ask questions if they didn't. But it's always good to follow up with them, either like a call or a text message, and saying, "Hey, did you understand what's going on?" And that's a lot of times what I have to do here with the families. And a lot of times I call them, they have additional questions, regardless of what was on the flyer that we sent. They'll still have additional questions, and it might be that information was on the flyer and we're like, "Oh, it was there," but for one reason or another, they still didn't fully understand, and it's good to go over it with them. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The other one is, whoop, where's it not going? There it goes. Acculturation. This process can be exhausting, and acculturation is the assimilation to a different culture, typically the dominant one, which, you know, they come here to the US and they have to adapt to the American culture. For Latino students, the process can be includes facing new experiences and challenges and events that require immediate attention, such as how to navigate the school system, communicate with teachers, acquire knowledge, and participate in sports and other extracurricular activities. So these are things that are, you know, they're all having to do at the same time, and it can be very exhausting. With this, I like to provide my own experience. I moved to the US at the age of 8, or I was turning 9, and I was coming in as a 4th grader. So, you know, I'm coming in the 4th grade, and it's like, well, now I have to learn the language. I need to learn how to like the food. I need to catch up on the work that they're teaching, the English, science, history, and so on. I have to get used to their activities. Like, I never learned how to play basketball and dodgeball and so on. So whenever, you know, I was trying to learn English and they're over here playing sports, it's like I can't even interact with them. So I felt left out because I was here in the 1st grade, 2nd grade when they were learning the rules of basketball or volleyball or whatever. So, or I was too busy putting priority on catching up on work and so on. So as a 9-year-old girl, trying to catch up on the culture, the food, the language, the work, it was really exhausting. So that's something to keep in mind, especially right now when we've had that wave of new immigrants from Latin America. So it's important to check on them every so often and understand what their goals are and ensuring that we can provide them other resources that we know about, because, you know, they might be having a hard time assimilating. And then constraint by family pressure. This is something you've probably heard about. I don't know if you ever spoke to any of your Latino students or seen, like, there's memes and TikToks making fun of this, where like parents can be strict, or, you know, they can't be out after a certain time, so they have a curfew, or they can go on sleepover. So they try to make it funny, or you know, make light of it in a funny way, but it's a true thing. Like, parents can be protective. They may not be used to giving their children as much independence as their peers, and they might have strong opinions that will complicate and even hinder college attainment. For example, like many Latino parents, they'll prefer for their children to stay at home than going far away or even close to a college and staying on campus. So this could affect some of the opportunities and some of those networking and other things that being on a college campus, experiencing the college life can offer. And then a lot of times parents might not let their children go to college because they have the familismo, where they want them to stay home and help with the family, whether it's taking care of children or taking care of their grandparents or sick parents or so on. So it can definitely constrain them and limit their own opportunities. Then for those that have, you know, with immigrant parents, there are several effects to having those immigrant parents. That includes economic constraints. Like I said, a lot of times these immigrant parents might not have the proper documentation, so they're working jobs that are not well paid. And those children that have immigrant parents are far off financially than Hispanic Latino children that have parents that were born in the US. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Language barrier, those children that have Hispanic Latino parents that were born in the US have just slightly better opportunity than those kids that have parents that do not speak the language, because those that do or that were born in the US, they probably understand the educational system because their parents have gone through it themselves. So those students can receive a little bit more support than those who have parents that were born outside the US. For those that have undocumented parents, that's those that do not hold a visa to reside in the US. These individuals, one thing to remember, it's not, don't call them illegal or alien. That's inaccurate and derogatory term, and it's dehumanizing. So the proper word is usually to use undocumented, but having those undocumented parents creates deportation. You know, these kids are going to school every day, and they, in the back of their head, they have those unique stressors of, you know, what's going to happen if we get stopped by the police, or what's going to happen if I go home, if I go to school and I come back and my parents were deported. They often feel like they have to live in the shadows, and they don't want to put their information or their family background out there because of that lack of safety and fear of that deportation. So whenever you're helping them apply to a college or complete the FAFSA, if that student is born here, they still might be hesitant because their parents could be undocumented, or they might not want to go out of state because they know that their parents could be deported and they have to be here to take care of their younger siblings or so on. And then the misconceptions about financial aid. Did I have somebody say something?
Sorry, yeah, it was me. Quick question, kind of while you're on that, and you may touch on this later, so you can skip it.
Yeah.
As far as like for the school counselor, whenever you have students that you don't know if their parents are documented or not, and you know, you haven't had the opportunity to build that relationship, but you're helping them in that college application process, that financial aid process. Do you have any recommendations on how to have that conversation, how to start that? Because you definitely don't want to be assuming, or I feel like sometimes even asking the question could come across as assuming. So what is your insight for a school counselor to hopefully encourage students to, if they do have an undocumented parent, to come forth with that information and maintain confidentiality, but still help them through the process?
Yeah, definitely. So that's something that I had to face myself, especially when I was working with TRIO and working with Hispanic students where, you know, I knew they were born here, but I didn't know if their parents had the proper documentation, and if, you know, how to go about FAFSA, because that was always the biggest thing, like completing the FAFSA, do they qualify, do they not, the parents' financial information, and so on. I'll go more in the detail in a second, but usually a question I ask is, hey, do your parents file taxes? And then I just say, like, do they use a social security number, or do they use their ITIN number? And usually if they use the ITIN number, then that means they're more likely undocumented. That's why they don't have the social to file their taxes. And that way I'm not asking them like, hey, are your parents undocumented? It's more like, what do they use to complete their taxes? Do you use the ITIN? And they're unofficially letting you know that they don't have, you know, the proper documentation. but definitely feel helping them. And I'm gonna give some tips on them how like helping them feel more comfortable with you as you help with this type of processes.
Perfect. Thank you.
And the last one, it was cultural assimilation. Parents have a harder time assimilating and are not able to support their children as much, mainly because they don't understand the importance of certain things. So what that means is that, like for example, my mom, when I was in high school, she was still trying to understand the American system, and it was hard for her to truly understand the educational system. So I remember I always like had to tell her like, oh, I have to stay after school and help with this, or I need to go volunteer that. And she always just said like, oh, you just want to be out and about. You just like being out of the house and not taking care of your responsibilities, so on. But she just didn't understand the value of volunteer work, because you really don't hear it back in her home country. At least when I was there, I don't remember that being such a thing. And here they put such a emphasis on being of service to the community, and she didn't understand that. So she always just thought like, oh, you're just making me waste my gas and my time taking you to all these places that are unnecessary. There's that assimilation. Okay, so proactive advising. These concepts can help you better connect and work with the Latino Hispanic students. And that, Whitney, this will go a little bit onto kind of the information you were asking me about. A study of first generation Latino students emphasize the importance of building relationships. So of relationship building achieved through gaining students' trust. The study responds to the following concepts, which are the personalismo, simpático, confianza, and parent involvement. So through all this, truly the key of being able to help this population is building that relationship with them. These are some of the concepts that can be used to build those relationships with them, and being able to understand this make it easier to be able to help them in the long run. So the first one is personalismo, which it's a formal friendliness. So Latinos place a great emphasis in personal relationships. They're characterized by interactions that are respectful, interdependent, and cooperative. So that means that, say, for example, a student comes into your office or a parent comes into your office and you're like in your computer, trying to pull up their information so you can give them the proper assistance that they need, but you didn't say like, good morning, come on in. They could see that as that lack of respect or that kind of formal friendliness, and they might feel there's some type of barrier to connect with you. So that personalismo is that formal friendliness. You want to stay respectful, but you also want to make sure that you're friendly with them, or else they'll think about that you were being, I guess, too cold for them, or giving them the cold shoulder, or so on. So the other one is simpático, which means likable, easy to get along. Simpático is a relational style that emphasizes the promotion and maintenance of harmonious and smooth interactions. It's described as a self scheme where one attempts to treat another person in a gracious and accepting manner, then to think about others as deserving of such treatment, and then to think about oneself as the kind of person who treats others in that manner. So it all revolves about being likable, being easy to get along with, being respectful, friendly. And then confianza literally means in English means trust. So talking to your students about their family, showing your genuine interest can really build that trust. So for example, if a student comes in and you're welcome them, hey, how are you? How is your brother? How are you adapting to this? And then just building the slowly building that conversation to show that you're there for them, that you're friendly, that they can trust you. It can really go a long way where they'll more likely feel comfortable to come back and talk to you or seek for help. And then with parent involvement, this has been the key for Mamás Unidas. That's why our mission is geared to connecting with the parents. Like I said, you go back to the familismo. If the family is a family unit, then they'll be able to ensure that the parents will be able to ensure that the students do what they're supposed to be doing based on what you tell them. Give me a second, I lost my. So with Mamás Unidas, we make sure that we provide that information specifically to the parents. I know a lot of times counselors, they'll provide the main information to the students, but if that information doesn't get to the parents, then more likely those kids are not going to do anything with it. They're not going to do what you tell them to do. But with us, we get to the parents, we tell them, this is what your kid is supposed to be doing. And the parents putting that emphasis on education and putting that emphasis on the leadership that they have in the family unit, they'll make sure that those things happen. And in such a short amount of time that we've had Mamás Unidas, we have seen that success where parents begin to be on top of their kids. Once they understand what they're supposed to be doing, they make sure that they're taking the ACT when they're supposed to. They make sure that they're volunteering. They make sure that they're on top of their grades and their homework. So really setting that time to talk to the parents to understand that to make sure that the parents understand what you want the kids to do. It really makes the difference. A good example that I wanted to insert here, for example, UCA, right now they're doing a Spanish college tours. So, they're putting together these Spanish college tours. I seen pictures on their Facebook where they have large groups of families that are coming together that are coming to take those group tours. But I can guarantee you that if it would have been like, oh, it's for Hispanic students in English, we're gonna make it specifically for them to do the tours, it wouldn't have been as much of a success or as big as having, it wouldn't have been as big as emphasizing it on the parents or targeting the parents. We also see this with, we went to Lisa Academy to do a presentation, and we ensured that this information was shared with parents and told them it's going to be Spanish specifically for you. We had a full house that day as well. But if we would have just told the kids and target them, it would have been a low attendance. So the parents are really the key. Once you get them involved, then you have the buy-in for the kids as well. So Whitney, how much time do I have? I don't know if I'll get, because I do want to take some questions if there's any, but I don't know if I can go through this really quick.
You have about 9 more minutes before we switch over.
9 minutes? Okay. So I'm going to go through this really fast. This is a second section of the presentation. Over the years when I've completed FAFSA, I've seen that it's really difficult to complete the FAFSA for parents that do not have a social security number. And I've been devastated a lot of times because students have come to us and said, hey, my counselor told me that since my parents are undocumented, I can't complete the FAFSA. And my eyes just go like, what? And even, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe 3, I went to a state meeting. I can't remember which one it was, but it was a person from the Department of Higher Ed. They asked her, hey, can students with undocumented parents complete the FAFSA? And she said no. And I was like, what? So you best believe I got up and I was like, that is not true. And I tried to explain to them, you know, the process for it. But that's why I decided to do this workshop, which is really a totally different presentation, but I wanted to condense it and at least touch up on some things, because it is possible if they don't have a social, it's just a few small things that they'll have to do that is different from anybody else. So if you guys have any questions about what I just presented, that first portion, let me know. You can unmute yourself. If not, I can go over a few things about completing the FAFSA when parents do not have a social. Okay. So this right here is essential to, when helping them with the FAFSA, it's essential that you understand the first part of the presentation, that you have created that relationship with them using the concepts that we talked about. So once you do all that and you have the relationship built and they can trust you, that confianza, then it's a lot easier to go into the FAFSA and being able to complete it because of such the sensitive information that it asks for. So with that, let's talk a little bit about undocumented and DACA students and as far as the FAFSA. So undocumented students will more likely not have a social. And, you know, without the social, you're not able to do the FSA ID, which means that more likely they will not complete the FAFSA and they don't qualify for it either. So DACA students, they do have a social and they have that permit to work, right? So with DACA students, they have the social, they can do an FSA ID and they can complete the FAFSA if they want to, but they will not qualify for aid. To qualify, you have to be a citizen, resident, and then there's some situations where they're an immigrant with a certain special permits. And there's a whole list out there that talks about what type of visa immigrants can qualify for. And a lot of times it's like those that are refugee and so on. But for DACA students, they do not qualify for the FAFSA, but they can complete it. And the benefits of filling it out, it's, for example, I'll just give an example. If they want to go to Hendrix, so, you know, they'll need the FAFSA. They need the FAFSA to get federal financial aid. They won't qualify for it, but they'll use the FAFSA information to look at their financial needs. And a lot of other private schools or even public schools that offer private aid might want to look at the student's financial need. So completing the FAFSA as a DACA students, they can demonstrate their financial need. So they still won't qualify for the aid, but they're at least showing that they would have qualified for the FAFSA. And that will give that the information that the colleges need so that they can award them with private aid. So asking a question, this goes back to what I was telling Whitney as far as like, how do you ask them without being awkward or without being offensive, if their parents have the proper documentation and so on and so on. This goes back to why it's important to create those relationships first and to demonstrate that they can trust you. But some possible lead questions that I have used myself, because I don't just go out and say, are you undocumented or not? It's also a hard question to ask even for me. I usually start out with like, where were you born, when you came here, and just like trying to learn a little bit more about them. And then if there's any answers that give like red flags, then we can ease into eventually asking that question. But my favorite question that's always that works a lot of times for me, it's asking if their parents file taxes with the ITIN number or Social Security. And like I already mentioned earlier, the ITIN number usually means that they don't have the social, which means that they probably aren't here with the proper legally, or with the proper documentation, meaning that they're undocumented. So that lets you know how to proceed. So what do you do with parents that are undocumented? And if the student is a resident or citizen, then again, they do qualify for FAFSA, even if the parents are undocumented. They'll be able to complete the FAFSA. The biggest thing is that the parent will not be able to create the FSA ID. So you have to print the paper and sign it by hand. And then for the Social Security question, you'll just put in zeros, and then you click next. It'll give you an error. You'll just make sure you click next again, and it'll eventually take those zeros as a Social Security number. Do not, and I repeat again, do not create an FSA ID with the ITIN number, because that will create more issues for them. So just put the zeros and let them do the hand signature at the end. There's some families that have mixed statuses, meaning that the mom might be undocumented, but the parent will have some type of residency or visa. Then what you can simply do is create an FSA ID for the parent that has the visa or the residency or whatever, and you can use theirs to make the process easier.
All right, Sandra, I know you got lots more great information to share, but we're going to move on for time. If it's okay with you, I will share your contact information, so that way if anyone has any of these more specific follow-up questions, they could reach out to you. That'd be okay?
Yes, and I'll definitely share this with you. What I'll do is I have notes at the bottom that you can use. So even if they weren't, available for the presentation, or if they were able to connect at the presentation, but want to review it, it will all be there. This is a resource that I think is really valuable as far as completing the FAFSA. And if they have additional questions or get stuck on something, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be either through Mamás Unidas or just me personally. We can help you complete the FAFSA.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sandra. We appreciate you taking the time and sharing this information with us today.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to move along. So next up, we have Dr. Nelson here from UAMS, and she's going to be sharing some of the programs that they offer statewide for K through 12 programs. So with that, Dr. Nelson, I'll let you take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Let's see, let me share my screen here.
Sandra, you might need to stop sharing.
Oh, yes, I think so. Okay. Okay, can everyone see that? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Well, it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. Again, I'm Dr. Shanae Nelson, Executive Director of the UAMS Pathways Academy program. And I apologize, I am going to kind of zip through this a bit. I shared that I do have a 10:30 meeting that I have to hop on, but hopefully this will be a good overview for you all about Pathways Academy and our mission, what we've been up to in the last year and a half, and our plans for our upcoming year of programming. So this is our amazing core team. We are a mighty team of 5, and they are an excellent team to work with. We have been on staff since August of 2021. And as you'll see, we've been very busy with starting the Pathways Academy program here in Arkansas throughout the state at various sites. I do want to point out that Justin Carbage is our outreach and recruitment coordinator. So in terms of being a main contact for school counselors and admissions counselors throughout the state for Pathways Academy, he will be the main point of contact, but I'll be happy to share that information as a follow-up to the presentation. So Pathways Academy, Pathways is really, it's been an opportunity to scale up existing programs that have been in existence at UAMS in the Division for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for quite some time. Our mission is to prepare K-12 students for careers in STEM and healthcare with a focus on groups that have been historically underrepresented in health professions. And we do that by making it very comprehensive, educationally engaging, and also engaging our respective communities. And you'll see our model here really sets us apart from other programs in that, of course, our focus is on students, but we also engage parents who we also refer to as advocates in ensuring that they have the tools necessary to help support their student through a STEM healthcare pathway and being successful. And also educators, realizing that it's important that culturally relevant content is presented in the classroom, particularly in the STEM fields, and actually developing a teacher academy in order to do that. We have, I call our in-house celebrity STEM educator, Ms. Katina White is our curriculum coordinator and does an excellent job with our curriculum. And at the center of that would be UAMS and our community partners. And you'll hear we have a great deal of community partnerships internally and externally that have made Pathways Academy very successful. I do want to mention that our primary source of funding is through the Arkansas Division of Workforce Services. We are funded by a TANF grant and other sources of funding, but that is our primary source of funding. And I want to shout out my great friend, colleague, and sister, Ms. Amber Booth McCoy, who really was a pioneer in establishing these programs long before I came on board at UAMS. And so she's been a pleasure to work with, and happy to see her on this morning as well. So Pathways Academy has started in the pilot sites, including Hot Springs, Little Rock, Pine Bluff, and Springdale. We do have plans this year to expand to include Camden, Helena, West Helena, Jonesboro, and Arkadelphia. So at the end of the second year, in year 2, we'll, for the most part, have a Pathways Academy program wherever UAMS has a footprint. And as I mentioned, partnering with local organizations within each of these sites is very key to making sure the program remains comprehensive and is able to thrive. So as I mentioned, our target population is certainly driven by our mission with diversifying the healthcare workforce throughout the state of Arkansas. So a focus on those who are historically underrepresented in the health professions, but also with our funding source through TANF, the eligibility criteria is largely income-based and based on socioeconomic status. So that is a key part of our target population as well. So regarding our community partnerships, these are some of them. We have a number of partnerships that we've been able to establish. You'll see we have several within UAMS, College of Health Professions, Culinary Medicine, College of Pharmacy, Cancer Institute has been a very crucial partner, regional programs, as well as Translational Research Institute. And we've also partnered with the USDA, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, as well as the Arkansas Cooperative Extension Services within each of our sites. They've been an amazing partner, providing various activities for our curriculum that have been integrated, and it's been amazing. Also, Big Brothers Big Sisters, integrating mentorship into our programming, the Arkansas Minority Health Commission. We have a fantastic partnership with the Schmeeding Foundation in Springdale. They've actually invested $500,000 in the Pathways Academy program in Springdale to ensure that there will be a Pathways Academy there for the next 10 years. So very grateful for that partnership. Of course, our Arkansas Workforce Centers and Usher's New Look Foundation, which is based in Atlanta. And they provide a great deal of our programming that is focused on psychosocial factors. So with our programs, Pathways Academy is the umbrella that includes 4 programs, again, spanning kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. The first is our Junior STEM Academy program for grades K through 5, and our Senior STEM Academy for grades 6 through 8. And this is really a time to just get students immersed in the field of STEM and healthcare, getting them excited about the possibilities that exist with health professions and careers, getting them excited about STEM in the first place and STEM in the classroom. And that consists of lots of fun and exciting activities, experiments, engineering challenges, and really building that community. And I know you've noticed the pictures where the students have had field trips to museums. They've actually learned community gardening, where they've actually worked in community gardens. We have a white coat ceremony for each at the start of each program for our 2-week summer intensive camp, which is sort of a hallmark signature program that we're very proud of. So also we've integrated a community scientist academy into our Senior STEM Academy for grades 6 through 8. So we have 6th graders who are actually conducting research over the summer. And I'll tell you a bit more about that in a second. So our Ramp Up program is for our high school students. That stands for Research Academic Mentoring Pathway for Underrepresented Populations. So this is where research is heavily involved. The Community Scientist Academy is woven through the entire program through the 2-week summer intensive camp, as well as during the academic year programming. And this is where we want students to really focus in on health professions that they're interested in, ensuring that they are prepared. There's ACT prep involved, of course, making sure that their content knowledge is on point so that they're able to be successful when they graduate. There's a warm handoff, hopefully, to here at UAMS with our Health Career University programs, which I know you all will receive more information about that soon. And lastly, our Student Athlete STEM Academy, which really is a focus on helping student athletes to see that there are opportunities in the medical professions that incorporate sports medicine and other healthcare professions. So this is just a sample of our summer intensive schedule, like what a day in the life of a scholar looks like over the summer. Each program, each summer begins with a 2-week summer intensive camp, and it is the intention that students will remain at Pathways Academy throughout the academic year, which consists of Saturday sessions, and normally about 2 hours. We do have some sites who host sessions after school, just depending on the site. But you'll see that it includes of course, the Community Scientist Academy, argumentative science inquiry labs, the chef life, garden life, my innovative life. Our theme for last summer was the good life. So it was lots of fun, and we're able to, of course, lots of play on the theme with that. My crew life, again, building that community. And it was amazing. It was our first time really expanding the program across the state. We had 7 sites technically that were being run last summer and have continued throughout the academic year. And we couldn't be happier with the success that we've had so far. So our program goals, I won't read each one of them to you, but ultimately our focus is on enhancing educational opportunities for underrepresented and low-income students, making sure that K-12 students are prepared with critical thinking skills, problem solving, really closing that educational achievement gap so that students have an opportunity to pursue a pathway in STEM and healthcare. And so there's a lot that goes into that. Again, a very holistic approach, as I mentioned, engaging parents and advocates and teachers in the entire process. So tracking our performance outcomes, they are set, of course, by the Arkansas Division of Workforce Services. We do provide quarterly reports based on our performance and updates quarterly to all of our funding sources. So lots of reporting involved, making sure that we're measuring our program impact. We're also currently partnering with UAMS Psychiatric Research Institute to completely develop our full evaluation framework as well. And with our performance indicators, as I said, we want to see improvement in English and language arts and math achievement scores, improvement in grades and GPA for students, of course, increased high school graduation rates, making sure that students are matriculating through grade levels as they should be. And ultimately want to see more students pursuing careers in STEM and healthcare, and seeing that increased awareness of educational opportunities in STEM and healthcare for scholars and parents. So just a little synopsis of our programming. Like I said, last year, our curriculum theme was the good life. We had 7 summer intensive camps across 4 sites, Hot Springs, Little Rock, Pine Bluff, and Springdale. We have academic year that has continued throughout the year. And this is our very first white coat ceremony that we had last year in Springdale. So every site has a white coat ceremony before the start of the summer intensive camp. So looking forward to another round of white coat ceremonies this year. Just a glimpse at our data. We have lots more to share, but just in the interest of time, we had 508 students who completed the 2-week summer intensive camp this summer. Throughout the academic year, we've retained about 70% of that group throughout the academic year sessions, which we're very happy about, considering there's lots of activities going on with students, especially K-12 during the academic year. So we've been able to keep them engaged with our teachers, our students, and advocates as well. And we actually have hosted advocate sessions for parents to get involved. So I can share more about that later in our advocate session, more information on our advocate sessions. And this is just a rundown of our summer intensive camps. All of this information is on our website about what sites, where we will be, which programs will be offered this year, and the dates for the summer intensive camps. And we are accepting applications at the moment. Right now, we do have a plan to add on about 350 additional students, of course, in our 4 new sites and expanding within our 4 existing sites. So if you're interested, of course, we'd like for you to share this information with your students. That is our website, DDI website, Pathways Academy. We're also on Facebook. The application is completely online. As I mentioned, Mr. Justin Carbage, our outreach and recruitment coordinator, is the main contact for a recruitment and outreach effort. So I will follow up. I'll be happy to share this presentation and also share a direct contact information for our team, particularly Mr. Carbage, who is handling all of our recruitment efforts. And I apologize, I had to zip through that.
Yeah, actually, you're right on time. So we appreciate you.
Thank you.
And then I'll share out your contact information. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So we are going to move right along. So for our last session, we have 2 fantastic professionals that are going to do the session check in, check out, mental health and wellness with a DEI lens. So I'll do a quick background on both these fantastic women. We have Amber Booth McCoy, who's a native of Little Rock, Arkansas. She received a dual degree in psychology and sociology from UA Little Rock. In addition to several professional and academic certifications, she is currently working towards a terminal degree in organizational leadership with an emphasis on social justice at Adler University. She served as an internal diversity, equity, inclusion consultant for the largest academic research center, UAMS, in the state of Arkansas, and she has over a decade of experience in higher ed and healthcare. So lots of knowledge coming towards us here soon. Joining her is going to be Isis Petway. She is a current resident of Little Rock, Arkansas, who works in the mental health field as a licensed therapist. She graduated from the University of Central Arkansas and went on to receive her master's in science for clinical mental health counseling and certification in play therapy from John Brown University. As a mental health professional, she desires to continue the work of shattering the stigma surrounding mental health and mental illness. Her training and current work experience includes populations of various demographics and backgrounds in the inpatient setting, nonprofit programs, and residential care facilities. She works with clients regarding issues such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, suicidal ideation, life transitions, and family of origin issues. So lots of great knowledge, great experience. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Amber and Isis.
Hello, thank you very much. And hey, Justin, hey. My colleague and teammate there. So shout out to Pathways Academy again, as an amazing program, and you all are doing amazing work. Give me 1 second and I will share my screen. All right, you see that? Yes, thumbs up. Isis, can you see?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. That's important information. All
I
right.
know we are in a webinar format, so it feels very one-sided. So
That's okay. We're about to, it's going to be pretty interactive. And so, because that's what we do, and I'll do anything to not have to hear myself talk. So, and those the people who are maybe not necessarily in this room simply may have to participate in chat, but we want to be able to hear from everybody during the session. So check in, check out mental health and wellness with a DEI lens, diversity, equity, and inclusion. For those who, are hear DEI all the time and are like, why do people keep saying that? So your facilitators, I am Amber Booth McCoy. You can call me Amber Nicole. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Chief Executive Officer for the Diversity Booth, which is a inclusion, equity, and social justice firm located here in Central Arkansas. And my dope bomb co-facilitator is
licensed therapist here in the state of Arkansas, currently working with Chanel Family Therapy here part-time, and then also full-time at UAMS with the AR Connect Now programs. And my pronouns are she, her.
Absolutely.
And Amber lets me come and present from time to time.
I'm not gonna play with you.
So good morning. All right. So we are here today. We're going to talk about cultural humility. So today's workshop is about using cultural humility and cultural responsiveness as a framework. This session will provide counselors with tips and tools necessary to promote optimal wellness related to mental health among students from diverse backgrounds. Guess what we're going to do today. So participants, you're going to engage in interactive discussions and activities. Y'all not just going to sit here and listen to us talk. We're going to ask you to do some things. You're going to come into the chat. We like to, engage with our people. But in activities, because that's how we designed it, to learn wellness initiatives and enhance your ability to use a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens in, your everyday student interactions and conflict resolution practices. That's very, very important. So that's why we're here today. That is why we are here today.
That is it. All right. Before we have this conversation, if we're going to do so with justice, we like to do a land acknowledgement. This land specifically was the land of the Osage, was Osage ancestral territory. We're going to even talk about virtual presentations, the land on which our fiber cables and such, still the indigenous voices that were forcibly removed from this land that are still present. We acknowledge the limitation of our voices if we're going to have conversations related to justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to make sure that we show reverence and pay homage to those who came before us on this land in this time.
All right, so as we get ready to move into our presentation today, with the understanding that when hearing the terms diversity, equity, and inclusion, it tends to bring certain things up, tends to bring certain things to the forefront. And so what we want to do right now is maybe take just a little bit, if there is any armor, we want to just kind of recognize, what do you need? Because you are the best advocate for yourself. So what are you going to need in this session? So you can either use the chat, probably have to use the chat since we are in webinar mode. And I want you to complete this sentence, okay? So to feel safe enough to have a real and meaningful conversation, I need. So for me, I need to be active listening. So you can participate in the chat. What do you need?
You can allow them to talk. I press the button that allows our participants to talk. So they should be able to if they want to. So panelists, look at that. Take support.
Yes.
Figuring it out. So whether you are a panelist and or in an attendee, you are welcome to simply unmute yourself and share, and to finish these prompts as ICE instructed. I feel respected when I don't have to be agreed with, but I do want to know that I've been heard. That is what makes me feel as though and safe enough to have a real conversation.
All right. So anyone else, participants, to feel safe enough to have a real and meaningful conversation, I need, and then the other prompt, I feel respected when. Yeah. So just kind of reflect on that. Okay. So as you all think about that, Amber, I'm gonna pass it back to you. Okay, I feel respected when my question is heard. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah. Because it's just the first of several questions that we're gonna ask. So there are lots of opportunities. There'll be lots of opportunities to share and talk. So yeah.
To feel safe enough to have a real and meaningful conversation, I need to ensure that I'm going to be understood.
Okay. What does understanding look like for you?
To, I guess, if I'm having a conversation with someone, I need them to know exactly where I'm coming from.
Okay.
Not to just, not to listen to respond, but to listen to understand for, that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to go through our touch points and touchstones, which is kind of what we consider to be the rules of engagement for this conversation. And excuse me. And if you think of something that you'd like to share from what you need, you're welcome to place that in the chat and we can read that after. So first, our touch points and touchstones. We are first saying that intent does not equal impact. This is also what we like to call the Bruce Banner versus the Hulk effect. You may mean something as benign as Bruce Banner, but it lands on someone like the Hulk. In this space, we're going to acknowledge a couple of things. One, that we're all here to learn, so that we want to provide grace, right? But two, that it may not have been your intent to impact someone, but any event that has happened, that we want to also make sure that we resolve that situation with justice, that we are able to listen to both sides of, that conversation or that situation. Additionally, it may be necessary for you to sit with why something impacted you the way it did, right, in this session. Next, to use I statements. I don't know why that is bitten like that. That's weird. To use I statements. Each and every one of us are multidimensional beings with various backgrounds, identities. We come from communities and our whole selves. And it is not necessary in this space to speak for a whole group's identities, personalities, populations. We're simply going to share using I statements from your lived experience. And in the event that, you are saying, well, sometimes you may hear one of the facilitators say I statements just to remind you that you are the only person that you have to speak for in this session. Right? Make space, take space. Make space, take space is a reminder to those extroverts who may be a little loquacious like myself to remember to make space during this time. And it is a plea to those introverts like Isis to take space as it is being given during this time. We're asking that we want to be able to hear from all the voices, because that's how we get the best out of this session, is to be able to learn from each other and our experiences. And so in the event that maybe you have someone that is monopolizing the floor of the conversation, you may again get a message from us that says make space, take space, just as a simple reminder that we want to be able to share the airspace. The Vegas twist, they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, unless you're one of my bridesmaids. But we are saying that what is said here stays here, that you won't share someone's lived experience without their permission. Anything that I say or that Isa says, you're welcome to plaster wherever you like. But if there is a participant sharing, that you won't share their lived experience without their permission. But what you feel here and what you learn here, That's what you take with you. That's the twist. So what's shared here stays here. What you feel, what you learn, that's what you take with you. Don't yuck my yum. You see that? Don't yuck my yum is a reminder. Why do you gotta laugh like that? Don't
To
yuck
the
my
camera to make the, the point.
So don't yuck me yum. It's a reminder that we know that we can shut someone down with a look, right? And that we want to make sure that if people are going to be vulnerable enough to share with us during this time, their lived experience, that we're mindful of our facial expressions. We don't have to agree with what is being shared or what is being said, but we do want to honor that space by making sure that we keep our facial expressions intact. So, and if you remember, don't yuck my yum, if you say it like that, then you'll remember to not yuck someone's yum. All right. Our touch points is like the cherry on top of all the things we just said. First, cultural humility, then civil discourse. We're going to discuss what cultural humility looks like in our everyday interpersonal, intrapersonal communication. But we are saying as far as someone's lived experience, we're not going to argue with someone's lived experience. They are the expert in their lived experience. So first, cultural humility, then civil discourse. We just simply want to make sure that we are listening first. And then we can disagree later. Windows and mirrors. Windows and mirrors is a concept that comes from the National Seed Project that stands for Seeking Educational Equity and Diversity. It's an amazing program. And windows, if someone is sharing a story about their life, or you're reading a book, or you're watching TV, and you don't have context for that story in your own life. You can't identify, you can't see yourself in that story. That's a window. They've provided a window for you. And if you are seeing something or watching something or reading and you can identify and you can see yourself reflected, that is a mirror for you. We are in this space, of course, looking to affirm and value both the windows and mirrors. And then additionally, as your favorite diversity specialist, it is necessary for me to tell you that if everywhere you go is a mirror for you, you are doing life wrong. It is very necessary to see other lived experiences, identities, viewpoints, and in order to get closer to seeing the world more so. If we do, we get closer to seeing the world as it is and not as we are, right? So that's why those windows and mirrors are important. Always by invitation. This is designed to be pretty interactive, but we don't want you to feel forced. We are simply saying that we want you to participate to your level of comfort. In that, you may say pass, if your name is called and you are not wanting to share at that time, but just know that we may come back to you at the end and ask if you are wanting to share now. To embrace the discomfort. It is typically not until my pants don't fit that I go to the gym. It is that discomfort that lets me know that it is time for change. And this is true as we're talking about the ideas and the concepts of equity and intentional inclusivity. In the event that you feel discomfort, then often know that that's where the growth is. Typically, this is who we want to be and this is who we are. And that space in there is where that discomfort typically lies. The more we lean into that, we get a little bit closer to not only easing that discomfort, but growing as a whole. Anything that I am missing in our touch points and touchstone, Isis?
No, covered it all.
For those who are participating in this space with us, can we agree to those together? If you want to say a yes, or if you, I don't know if you have the reactions, but can we agree to our touch points and touchstones before we move forward?
I got a yes.
All right, got a yes in the chat. Okay. All right. All right, so in this session, we said that we're going to talk about different ways to check in and different ways to do that based on simply finding new fun ways to find points of interaction and engagement with individuals around you. I like to use check-in questions for every single meeting that I'm going to have, whether it's with my team, my friends, all of that, simply to be able to, see what their bandwidth or their emotional state looks like at the time. So this question that we have for you, which again, we use a method called popcorn, meaning anyone ready can go once we share a prompt, or you can place it in the chat. But if you had to describe your year excuse me, 2023. It is 2023. That's crazy. If you had to describe your year using a weather event or natural disaster, what would it be? Isis, you had to describe here.
All right, so far, I'm gonna say sunshine. I'm going to use sunny forecast. Things have been pretty sunny days, so that's the other event I'm going with. All right, who's next?
Nice. I love this question. Since we're all in Arkansas, I think we can understand this one. I feel like I'm just Arkansas weather so far.
Okay, yes,
I like it.
I do.
Just a little bit, mostly good, but there's been some little rough patches, some cold days, and I'm really looking forward to some nice long stretch of sunny.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. I call Arkansas, like when you're thinking about what to wear, it's your favorites. You can wear your favorite sweater, shorts, flip-flops, and parka all in the same day sometimes here in Arkansas,
I'm just
You
saying,
just wear your favorites.
pack up summer clothes, wear, because
Right. Like
why?
Seasons what? Okay.
What are seasons?
So, all right, any participants? Darren, Justin, Corey, Erica, if you had to describe your year using a weather event or natural disaster, what would that look like?
Hurricane for me.
Okay. Why hurricane?
It's a lot going on. Stuff is everywhere, but it's coming together. So I'll say that.
Am I the only person that heard the song? Hurricane? No,
You
okay.
you are.
Okay.
You absolutely are. Yeah.
That's cool. Darren, Corey, Erica, if you had to describe your year using a weather event or natural disaster, what would that look like? Oh, Erica, pardon me. I think I said Eric. Okay. Well, if they put it in the chat, Isis, let me know.
I sure will.
But it says weather event or natural disaster. Other check-ins that I like to use that are fun, or you can ask if you had to use or describe it using a color. There you could also do a zoo animal or an animal, not necessarily a zoo animal, not the ones in captivity, my bad. Or an animal.
The ones on the safari?
The ones in the safari, just all the ones.
They living.
I love using a like you had to describe your week using a song lyric, or I like salad topping or ingredient. That is also a fun one. Another one could be if you, depending on the age group, I like to do if you had to describe your day, week, month using a college course, real or imaginary. Oh my gosh, those get fun. Like people come up with some really crazy 100 level, 200, 300 level courses, imaginary courses. But the point is, if I do this check-in with my team and everybody on my team, like Justin said, hurricane, if everybody on my team is in a tornado, a hurricane, a tsunami at the beginning of that meeting, I'm probably canceling that meeting. It doesn't sound like my team in that moment has the bandwidth to have the conversation that we need to have. It may simply be a time for me to check in with my team and find out if we can assuage some of this weather that's going on. Right. How much of what is happening with the way they describe their week or month is based on what's happening in the office professionally or that kind of thing. And how can we best support, those team members or that student in this time? Any questions on this check-in, or Isis, anything you'd like to share on checking in as it relates to, your expertise and experience?
No, actually you covered it with the importance of recognizing bandwidth and recognizing patterns and saying, okay, hey, maybe this is not the best time for us to maybe have a meeting because you're not going to be physically, you're here, but mentally you're not present. So, let's switch gears. Let's kind of change things around. And that's where the flexibility comes in, and being present with your people matters. So
absolutely. I'm also confident 70% of meetings can be emails, but that is a different course for a different time.
I am in agreement. Okay.
So we're going to discuss diversity, equity, inclusion. It is necessary for us to define it, right? So when you think of diversity, I want you to think about representation. It is representation of various identities, the multi-dimensional identifiers that make us who we are, whether that's race, gender, national origin, birth order, thinking styles, all of these things that make us who we are. A lot of times we have, like I'm talking with groups and they'll say, oh, we don't have any diversity. Be specific. You mean you don't have any racial or ethnic diversity? There is always diversity in groups at all times. Now, whether you have a specific type of, whether that's gender diversity or socioeconomic status or things else, that's different, but I don't ever want us to look at any group and think that there is no diversity in that group. And we need to be specific about the type of diversity that we are talking about. Equity deals with the environment. It's an environment that ensures equality of opportunity and fair treatment and access. So when you think equity, I want you to think access to information and resources. It also means that there is a community specifically designed to remove barriers that eliminating discriminatory practices and policies, right? So we want to also think of this as the rectifying of possible past mistakes. We want to make sure that it is just in the way we are going about making sure that we are supporting each and every individual, student, colleague. But specifically, I want you to think environment and the removal of barriers to access and information, right? Access to resources and information. And inclusion is about the feeling. That is specifically about culture. It is about belonging, where individuals feel that they are valued and respected and heard, and that their voice and whole selves are welcome in spaces, right? So representation, access to information and resources, and then feeling of being valued and respected. I always say music is my love language. So when you think about it like this, diversity would be if we were creating a playlist and everyone was able to add their favorite song to the playlist, right? Everybody gets to add their one favorite song to the playlist. That's going to be our diversity. Equity is then ensuring that every single person is able to access the playlist, and it is not harder for one person to access the playlist than anyone else, right? That we have made sure that we removed all barriers to individuals being able to access this diverse playlist. That's equity. Inclusion is that feeling you get when your song comes on and you're like, that's my jam. That is inclusion, all right? I want you to think about it that someone's favorite song may be Baby Shark, but you can make it through 3 minutes. Don't make that face, Isis. It may absolutely be someone's favorite song, but you can make it through. You can make it through 3 minutes of Baby Shark to watch somebody have the that's my jam face, okay? So that's how we want to think about that. Diversity is the playlist. Equity is making sure everyone can access it. And inclusion is, what's inclusion?
I was waiting on everybody else. That's making sure
everybody else.
That's making sure everybody is able to feel like, so if my jam comes on, I'm in it, you know, and somebody else just, hey, listen, they're happy, I'm rocking with them because my turn is coming, you know, but right now it's their turn, so I'm cool.
And you're gonna listen to me sing all 5 minutes of Bohemian Rhapsody. Please understand.
I might join you.
I'm going through all of Bohemian Rhapsody is going to happen.
I'm just saying. And, you know, then you'll introduce me to something new. And so then, you know, I'll go listen to other music. And so, you know, I got like a whole new playlist to create, you know. Absolutely. So now my lens is broadened because I chose to. Okay, so with that, to piggyback off the playlist, I love when she does that. We tend to have a very short-sighted view of diversity. So when the word comes up, automatically what I see when I've worked with Amber or when I've facilitated different things, people automatically go to ethnicity, race, when the word diversity comes up. However, there are, even with this short-sighted demonstration that you're seeing, go back. Even with the short-sighted demonstration that you just saw, how, you know, we still forget about non-able-bodied people, nationality, of course, gender comes into play. So gender, race, and ethnicity are like those top things that people see when they think about diversity. Socioeconomic status even tends to go to the bottom. We see race, we see ethnicity, we look at the outside. Then you realize that diversity is it's so much more than this. We are diverse by geography. So of course you hear, you know, if you're not from the South, then people tend to look at outside, you know, if you're not from the South, you're an outsider.
And you may be out here saying things like pop instead of soda, or you know what I mean? Like calling all of the beverages Coke. That's not a thing. But
that part. And then you have, you know, thinking styles. And so where I may be a hands-on learner, I may have someone sitting next to me that, you know, they get it one time from the person saying it, and I got to have the demonstration. I need you to go to the board, teacher, because I don't have it yet. Religion, perspective. Again, like I grew up in Flint, Michigan for a particular point of time. So my lens on some things may be just a little different from someone who's never maybe left their neighborhood. Our age gives us different lived experiences. We've grown up in different times. Sexual orientation. There's one I can't, but these are just the different ways to broaden your language. Language is so important because we all have different ways of saying things and thinking about things. So like Amber said, again, my northern portion comes in because I still say pop. I want to pop. And I have people look at me crazy like, you want to no, I want my pop. Give me my pop. And so even language is a big part of diversity. So what may mean something here, if I go over to England, if I go over to London, England, they're gonna look at me like that's not what that means over here. And so, you know, that's even a bigger portion of diversity. So I love this lens because it is very important to broaden your definition of diversity, because it's so much more than what we've assigned to it.
Absolutely. And this doesn't include birth order, right? Or military status and other things that also very much play a part in who we are. So the goal is just, we want you to think about the many different things that make us the multifaceted human beings that we are. And the idea of inclusion speaks to whether we are comfortable enough to bring our whole self into spaces, right? Whether you feel you have to turn off certain parts of your identity in order to be able to exist in spaces. The term is what speaks to whether that space is inclusive and or not. So a lot of time, and our presenter earlier spoke absolutely about diversity in different ways to make sure that we're acknowledging not only culture, but kind of someone's lived experience. And we like to promote that through culture humility, so we call it. You don't have to know everything about every single culture, background, every tradition, all of the ancestry. What you do need to know is simply a willingness to suspend what you know or what you think you know about a person or generalizations about their culture, and be open to what they have determined is their personal expression of their culture. It's being mindful that they are the expert in their lived experience, period. It is a commitment to self-evaluation and critique. It is acknowledging that you're going to get it wrong sometimes. We are going to make mistakes. I know this is hard to believe, but I honestly can't think of anything that I did right the very first time I got it. I know it's difficult because so good at all the things, but being mindful that anything that we care about, we are going to have to try over and over and over again, right? So we're going to make mistakes. Cultural humility also means that there's a desire to fix power imbalances if they exist in spaces that they should not. And I personally love it because it comes with a side of advocacy, where we have an aspiration to develop mutually beneficial and non-paternalistic partnerships with people or groups with whom we advocate for, right? Meaning that we are going to make sure that intentional inclusivity is moving from asking who's not at the table to asking who's at the table to asking who's not at the table that should be, but then also making sure that when we bring them to the table, that they don't just get a chair, but they also get a microphone upon arrival, right? Because they don't need us to speak for them. They just need access to the table. Isis, anything on cultural humility before we? So, a moment to reflect. You don't mind. Isis and I are going to read something for you, and if you would, you are comfortable closing your eyes or maybe focusing on a spot on the floor, and we are just going to share some things with you. What time did you wake up this morning?
It's morning typically when you come home from another job.
Did you have to wake up early to make time for prayer?
Were you responsible for waking up children, parents, or a partner?
Did you have to take any medications?
Did you have any physical health routines to prepare you for moving throughout your day?
Did you have to pack your meals due to dietary restrictions?
What did you have to do to represent your gender today? Or did you have to style your hair?
Did you worry that if you wore your hair naturally, that it would be viewed as unprofessional? Or did you have to style your makeup? Did you have to do any binding or enhancing to make sure you represented your gender today?
Did you have to take any children to school or childcare? How did you get to work today?
Did you drive your own car? Did you have to worry about finding or paying for parking?
Did you have to rely on public transportation? Did you have to worry if the building would be accessible for you?
Did you have to locate an elevator immediately upon entering? Or did you have to consider if there would be a lactation station available for you?
Did you worry if there would be a restroom that you felt safe using? Did you worry if security would question your presence in this space? Did you worry about being viewed as competent, knowledgeable, or trustworthy?
Did you even question if this presentation would be given in a language you can understand? Did you worry if there would be an interpreter available for you?
Did you have to prepare to be away from your desk or station for this presentation? Did you have to check in with other employees? Are you able to focus and be present right now?
After this workshop, do you have another job you need to attend for extra money, for bills, a loan, or to send home to family? Do you have to sometimes triple, double check your work to ensure that you've not transposed words or numbers?
Do you struggle to stay focused throughout the workday? Are you able to focus and be present right now?
Have you often remained quiet during conversations due to some disparaging or mocking of one of your hidden identities, such as anxiety, depression, or a cognitive disability? You can open your eyes. And what, what, if anything, bubbled up for you as this was being read, or what questions stuck out to you? Whitney? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think definitely just, of course, having kids, having some extra, luggage to tote around in the mornings, but also realizing I'm really blessed to have a personal vehicle to make all my drops accessible. Not thinking about, a lot of other people have to go through, well, I feel like I have extra steps. When you put it into perspective, I'm actually very lucky and blessed with the life I have.
Thank you for sharing.
If I can add to that, same here. As I was going through it, I was kind of just shocked by how much I didn't have to think about and other people have to prepare as they go. And when you put it that way, like I'm, I guess, blessed in ways that I never really thought about, and to imagine like the obstacles and the burdens that people have to go through of representing themselves or representing their gender. I guess it's a sense of privilege that I don't have to think of.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
For me, it was the question about working multiple jobs, for other streams of income to be able to sustain and be able to just take care of your responsibilities. You have to do extra work just to get things done from day to day.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? For me, sometimes this reflection is a reminder of where I am and also where I've been. At this point in my life, finding and paying for parking probably wouldn't be an issue. but I was a single mom for 11 years. And there was absolutely times where me pulling up to the gate and then pretending I forgot my debit card because I didn't have money to get out of that parking deck, you know, or it's also a reminder for me that there are times where I encounter individuals and I think they have an attitude and I have absolutely no idea what they encountered before we entered the same space. I have no idea if they ate that morning, if they got dressed in the dark, how many individuals they had to take care for before we even made it into the same space together. So it's a reminder for me to hold space and also remember the stories that we all have a story. Isis, anything for you?
Absolutely. So every time you do this exercise, it is, absolutely a reminder of either where I've been, where I am, or how I'm holding space, specifically when working with my clients. And, even with this particular, when working with students, my mother is a retired educator and she is. And so, there's one particular story that she would always share about a student who was taking care of brothers and sisters because of issues with the parents, and how this particular student would come into the classroom and would go to sleep. And so to the outsider, it would look like the student was just not participating or, just didn't want to do their classwork. But my mother was able to see beyond that and just had the student stay after class one day and was just like, what's going on? And that's when the student, just kind of broke down and told my mom, these are the things happening in my household and I don't get any rest. I don't get any sleep. And so it's hard for me to come to school and focus. So I work with kids and teenagers, as a therapist, and it's always a reminder that what you see on the surface, we're really good at masking, and you never know. And so I could walk into the office and I'm just not in the best of moods. And it doesn't mean that I'm immediately, mad at you. It's just there are a plethora of things I had to do to even get here this morning. And so, give me a minute. So it's always a reminder that none of us have the same, none of us have the same shared lived experiences at times. And it's not about you. This is always a reminder that it's not about you in that moment. And to not take things personally because you don't know someone's story to where, how they even had, what they had to do to show up.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's also, for me, this a willingness to understand the spectrum of privilege.
Yes.
Right. And how that may change from one question to the next, and power dynamics and such. So thank you. Anything else on the reflection before we move forward from anyone? Okay. All right, fun stuff. All right, the case study I will send to my favorite therapist.
All right, so on this particular case study, because again, we said that we want y'all to come, engage in with case studies. These always, have a way to kind of get you to think outside the box and different things like that. Amber, there was another part.
I know. I didn't know if you. Okay, my bad. If you needed that part,
yes.
First. Okay.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to read this out loud, and we can just kind of discuss it. And I wanted to kind of specify it because I knew this was towards counselors. And so approaching mental health, through the DEI lens, number one, as counselors, you're always asked, to recognize your lens, where you're coming from, and then, who you're working with. And so in this particular case study, the author, so their positionality, female, so Taiwanese international student living in the United States. I identify my privileged positions as being in a heterosexual marriage, being young, having no disabilities, being well-educated, and being at a socioeconomic status level where I do not have to worry about basic survival. In the United States, my marginalized positions are identified as being non-white, non-European, and non-US citizen, having English as my second language, and being a female. So thinking about the things that Amber presented earlier with the definitions of diversity, equity, and inclusion, thinking about the short-sighted view of diversity and then the broader view of diversity, you can see even as the author presents herself, she lets you know what her positions are in this arena. And then when she's in the United States, how she presents, here. So she's operating in what one of my favorite sociologists calls, it's the veil. So how does she operate, in this arena? And then how does she have to operate over here? So here is your case study, okay? The Schmidt family is composed of father, Simon, 41 years old, mother, Linda, 38 years old, and Lucas, 8-year-old. This is an interracial adopted family. Lucas is Latin, adopted at birth by Simon, who was born in South Africa, and Linda, born in the United States, both of whom identify as white. The identified patient of the family is Lucas. The parents reported that he was unable to focus on task and homework and were concerned about his hyperactivity. During the first 3 sessions, I worked with the parents to gather information regarding their concerns about Lucas. During one session, I was curious about Simon and Linda's parenting styles and wondered how coming from different cultures affected their parenting approaches. I asked, I have noticed differences in parenting styles between US and Taiwanese culture, and I wonder if you have had similar experiences with each of your cultural upbringings. My self-disclosure led to Simon and Linda sharing their family of origin stories and discussing how they navigated the differences between their cultures when it came to parenting. So during my work with them, I noticed that Linda was often overwhelmed by anxiety, mostly due to Lucas not being able to behave. During one session, Linda came in frustrated, sharing that she was upset about Lucas's poor school performance. Both Linda and Simon are highly educated, so I originally hypothesized that they might have unreasonably high expectations for Lucas, but when we explored their expectations, they fell into the normal range. All they wanted was to have Lucas pass in school. I validated her frustration and started to hypothesize that her feelings might have an underlying meaning. I told her, Linda, I know you're frustrated. I ask you a bold question? If you feel like I don't make sense, feel free to correct me. For me, being an Asian woman in the US, I sometimes feel like I have to work harder to get people to acknowledge that I'm competent and good enough. I wonder, given the history of racism in this country, do you sometimes worry that Lucas might be discriminated against because of his skin color, especially when your family lives in an area with a majority white population? And might that be why you've tried so many different things in hopes of seeing an improvement in his behaviors to ensure he succeeds and avoids becoming a minority fail statistics? Her anger softened, and I saw tears gather in her eyes. She told me that all her colleagues are white, and some of them make racist remarks. Anxiety strikes her every time she takes Lucas to work with her, because whenever he misbehaves, she worries about her colleagues' reactions. She also mentioned that she knows Lucas looks cute right now, but she often tells Lucas that once he is able to drive, the police will not perceive him as cute anymore. Because of all the stereotypes and discrimination in the United States, Linda and Simon feel like they cannot just raise a good kid. They must raise Lucas to be better than other kids. By sharing my own experience as a minority in the United States, I was able to connect with Linda on a deeper level and help her conceptualize her anxiety in a systematic framework. So I know it was a lot. So in this particular case study, where do you see this particular therapist using a DEI lens to not only connect with the parents, but to also get them to understand the importance of, to understand the importance of it in raising their child? Like, what difference did it make that she used that DEI lens in this particular session?
I like that she acknowledged her own identity first and the intrapersonal things that could have been, of course, taking place or that will take place during interactions with individuals, and then also acknowledging her assumptions as it relates to, you know, what she thought about the parents, not only their expectations, but how they may be guiding or even their motivations, you know, for how they were rearing their child.
Okay, thank you. So in that particular example, one thing we're warned about as therapists is to be very careful with self-disclosure. And so what this particular therapist did was, of course, we heard of intersectionality. And so what she did in that particular example, to have therapeutic alliance when working with this client. And so I don't, you know, how can you use this when working with your students? Again, like Amber said, she shared, you know, first she asked, is it okay, you know, is it okay if I ask you, you know, this question as a minority in this country? You know, is it okay if I approach you, you know, in this perspective? And so by doing that, she gave power to the client, so that it didn't feel forced. Because I know in this environment, and we've been in different environments where, you know, it can, you know, everybody feels like it's forced. It is like, you know, so when working with this client, hey, can I present this particular lens through my lived experience? So she asked if it was okay for self-disclosure, in that forming the therapeutic alliance. And immediately the client was able to soften, and the therapist was able to go a little deeper and see what those real fears were. She was able to help the client unmask and see what the true concerns were. And so in your work, how do you see this being, what has this case study kind of maybe brought to light for you? Or, you know, even in situations where some of you have worked with students, like anything you've been able to recognize or anything you see that could be helpful? Thank you, Justin. I'll see you on campus one day. Anyone?
I really value just giving the space, and like you said, just acknowledging those assumptions, but giving that space, you know, please, you know, correct me at that time. Because personally, that's something that, you know, especially on our first session, just talking about working with Latina and Hispanic students, especially around the documented question, you know, coming, you know, from a white female background, approaching those conversations. So just finding the space, you know, to not come across as being assumptuous, being genuine and being authentic. So just coming from a space, recognizing that I don't have all that information and putting it out there to the student, you know, please educate me within that background in, I guess, an honest, confidential way. If that made any sense at all. I totally rambled.
No, you didn't know. Absolutely, because when forming the therapeutic alliance, and like you said, when you are working with students, one of the important things when I was, you know, doing some background with this particular case study was looking at, there's already a hierarchy, kind of a power dynamic in when you come in with the therapist, there's this assumption they're the therapist, they know everything. And one of the things that I have to do with my clients is always inform them, this is a collaboration. You are the advocate and expert on yourself, and we are walking this journey together. And so in doing that, what you did, you know, what you do with your students is you automatically, hey, listen, I need you to tell me. So you automatically lower that hierarchy, you lower that power dynamic and say, hey, this is not a power and control thing. This is, I want to help you as much as possible. And you're easing that anxiousness, you're easing some of those fears that your students and their parents may have. And they may, you know, and by lowering that, they may find it a little bit easier and may even feel safer speaking to you, and you create that relationship. And so, you know, that's one of the things that I got out of the particular case study was, you know, making the parent feel safe enough to talk about these fears, to be able to say, you know, when my colleagues say these things, I get anxious about it. I'm worried about how they see us. And I know what's out there from my perspective, you know, so I already have these fears around how my son is growing up. And so, just being able to recognize those lenses changes the approach, because why am I going to do CBT and my client has a whole different fear, DBT, CBT, persons, that like all that goes out the window. I've got to come with a new approach. So it's breaking down some of those trainings and coming down and saying, wait, does my client feel seen? Does my client feel connected? Do they know that they belong right now? Okay. Anyone else want to, anything with the case study, how it may be helpful to you? Did it help you to see anything? Okay, Amber, I'm gonna turn it back to you. If you do have any comments or anything, please feel free to use the chat.
Okay. We're gonna not do our name activity, but just things for your toolkit as you are, working with your students, and things to ask, yourself, in this daily work as a counselor, or self-assessment questions.
Okay. All right, so these self-assessment questions, on what dimensions of identity do I differ from, my client, as indicated by the demographics collected. So when you're meeting, when you're doing the intake, whatever that looks like, how might I, this was a question I was just like, whoa, how might I unintentionally oppress the client if I'm not careful? So what forms of my diversity, may unintentionally oppress the client and I don't even recognize it?
Mm-hmm. What aspects of intersectionality, which is when we are thinking about intersecting identities that may impact the individual's identity or existence, if you will. So what aspects of intersectionality exist within the family couple system I am treating, and how might I unintentionally reinforce problematic power dynamics within the system if I am not careful? So I think about, am I reinforcing patriarchy? Am I being sexist in some way? Am I being misogynistic or perpetuating misogynoir? And those also have to be determined in the ideas of, am I perpetuating internalized patriarchy, internalized sexism, internalized misogynoir as well?
Let's skip over a couple of these, but just address the ones. How much knowledge, experience do I have with each aspect of the client's identity, which differs from my own? So again, like Amber said, what are those things you need to check in with? And, is
the windows and mirrors.
Yeah, windows in the mirrors. What common stereotypes exist about the client's identity, which could unconsciously influence my work with them? So what's tapping? What are those biases? What are those things you need to check in with and see, is it impacting how I'm approaching and working with my client?
What contextual factors going on in society at large need to be addressed based on mine and the client's intersectionality? And I think about just doing this work as a DEI practitioner during 2020. It was extremely difficult to be a Black female and to do this work and to be the mother of Black sons during that time, right? So when we think about not only just that individual, but society at large as we're engaging with individuals.
And then I think this is an important one. What aspects of oppression are involved in the conceptualization of the presenting problem? So if my client doesn't have certain housing, you mentioned, someone mentioned earlier about documentation, so what are those aspects of oppression, where this may not be a cut and dry type of approach? What are those things? They don't have enough resources. They can't even, if my client doesn't have food, shelter, clothing, they can't even meet their basic needs. What's keeping them from that? So what's the neighborhoods that they live in? So what aspects of oppression are involved? So those are just some different things to take into consideration as well.
Absolutely. Rhino actions. I think that we've dropped some nice gems. Things that I guess final thoughts that I would want you to think about is remembering the whole story. Remembering that each and every one of us not only has a story, but that I want to make sure that I statements, am holding space for those stories, and that I don't get so caught up in everything that's going on that I don't individualize interactions and I'm not intentional in spaces and present with when I'm doing the work that I do. Isis P.
Right now, actions to continue to, number one, always check in with yourself. Always check your lens. You know, what is happening in your life? Do you need to ask yourself some of those questions that we just did? And then even, okay, what am I taking personally? There is a there's a thing I go over with my clients called circle of control, as well as cognitive distortions. You know, am I making molehills? Am I making mountains out of molehills? And so, you know, just checking in with yourself, checking in with your lens, seeing where you need to do your work, and not being afraid to approach that. So, you know, those are always right now actions is where do I need to gather and check in with myself, or have someone to give me feedback? Where am I open to receiving constructive criticism and being corrected?
Yes. Excuse me. So we checked in, and as said on the title slide, we want to check out. So as far as what or all that we've discussed, what are you taking with you, or what are you leaving here in this space? Right? I'm taking the self-assessment inventory with me. Those are things that are not just for counselors. I think those are questions that I could ask in my intake, in the work that I do as well. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to leave assumptions here in this space.
I am definitely taking with me the reflection questions. You know, again, to remember that, yes, there are certain privileges in certain spaces, certain things that I don't have to worry about, and making sure that, you know, I keep that, you know, check that perspective. And again, not assume that just because I have access to something, everybody else has access to something. So always, you know, going to take those reflection questions. What am I leaving in this space? I think just like Amber, I'm going to leave the assumptions, you know, because assuming, if you all know, you know, so I'm going to leave the assumptions. All right, participants, check out with us. What are you taking with you?
What are you
Or
taking and leaving? Yep.
Well, I will definitely always remember the playlist analogy to diversity, inclusion, and equity. I think that's just such a helpful tool to kind of bring it back, because those are big words and they can carry a lot of weight. So I think having a very simple way to reflect and just really make it meaningful. I think I'm going to jump on the checkout train with the assumptions. So, you know, there's already been, even this morning, a couple of things that's come up that I'm like, oh, I need to pause and wait a minute, and really see what's on the other side of the door there.
Thank you. I love it. Anyone else checking out?
I guess the same. I can't remember who said it, but just I guess, the reminder of privilege. That was a huge one for me as you guys were presenting. Especially a lot of times as a Black male, we often, I guess, forget the privilege that we have. So it was a good reminder to kind of, I guess it was a reminder to check my privilege at the door on many occasions.
Thank you for sharing and for your authenticity. Anyone else? Okay. If you have your phone, you are welcome to scan this QR code. You will have every single piece of contact information that I have. But I mean, when I say you are welcome, like absolutely welcome to stay in touch. I have been in the field of diversity for almost a decade. Oh my God, that's so weird to say. And and I bartended for like several years. So I can't be offended. And if you can shock me, I'll buy you lunch. So you're welcome to stay in contact, you know, send information, ask questions. I don't know everything, but I will always share what I know. And I am, you know, happy to be your favorite diversity specialist. And I'll give anyone who may be copying that a second to scan it, and then Whitney, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, Amber, Nicole, Isis, y'all, it is exactly 11:30 on the mark. So perfect timing there. We appreciate the knowledge, the experiences that you shared. So I know our overall attendance on the webinar was a little lower than expected, but we have been recording this. So we will be able to share it out with our SACAC members. So with that, everyone, that's a wrap. Until we see you all next time.
Wait,
Right.
smile.
Oh, yes.
Oh, hold on. I am. Smile. All right. Oh, 1, 2. Wait, I look stupid. Wait, I wasn't ready.
Oh my.
Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay.
All right. All right. Well, I'll end the webinar now. Hope everyone has a fantastic day and all weather is bright and shiny.
I will see you soon. I'm headed to Mount.
All right. Bye.